Some of the most powerful transformations in a human life do not begin with confidence. They begin with confusion, with discomfort, with the quiet feeling that something inside you is breaking apart. Here's a harsh truth most people never hear. When life starts falling apart, it's often not a punishment, it's a preparation. Carl Jung believed that the best stage of your life usually begins right after the old version of "you can no longer survive." And if you're experiencing certain strange, uncomfortable changes right now, you may not be lost. You may be standing at the doorway of the most meaningful chapter you will ever live. If any of this feels personal, listen carefully, because the signs we're about to explore are rarely talked about and even more rarely understood. Jung spent his life studying what happens when a person outgrows the life they've been living. He noticed something fascinating. Right before psychological growth accelerates, people often feel worse, not better, more alone, more uncertain, more misunderstood. Why? Because growth doesn't announce itself as success. It announces itself as tension. And that tension is not random, it follows patterns. The first sign is feeling disconnected from people you used to relate to. Not because you think you're better than them, not because you're angry, but because the conversations feel empty. Small talk drains you. Social roles feel artificial. You start craving depth, meaning, and honesty. Jung would say this happens when the persona, the mask you wear for society, no longer fits who you're becoming. And when the mask cracks, loneliness appears. This loneliness isn't a flaw, it's a signal. Here's the uncomfortable part. Most people panic at this stage and rush back to old identities just to avoid being alone. But those who don't, those who stay with the discomfort, change forever. If you're thinking, something feels wrong with me lately, good. That thought itself is often the doorway. The second sign is emotional instability, mood swings, sudden sadness without a clear reason, moments of deep clarity followed by confusion. Jung didn't see this as weakness. He saw it as the unconscious rising to the surface. When buried emotions begin demanding attention, they don't arrive politely. They arrive loudly. What feels like emotional chaos is often emotional reorganization. The psyche is restructuring itself, and restructuring is messy. Here's the truth most people don't want to hear. If you numb this stage with distractions, substances, constant noise, you delay your growth. If you face it, you accelerate it. The third sign is losing interest in things that once defined you. Careers, goals, ambitions. You start questioning why you wanted them in the first place. This can feel terrifying. But Jung believed this moment is when borrowed desires fall away. You're no longer motivated by approval, status, or external reward. You're being pulled inward towards something more authentic. And authenticity always begins with destruction. The next sign is the one that scares people the most. You begin confronting your shadow, thoughts you didn't know you had, feelings you were taught to suppress, anger, jealousy, fear, desire. Jung warned that ignoring the shadow does not make you good. It makes you dangerous, because what you refuse to face controls you from the dark. But when the shadow emerges consciously, it means you're ready, ready to integrate it, ready to gain power instead of repression. Here's the harsh psychological truth. People who never face their shadow live small, predictable lives. People who do terrify others, not because they are cruel, but because they are whole. The fifth sign is a deep exhaustion with pretending. You no longer want to explain yourself, justify your choices, shrink to make others comfortable. You start valuing silence over performance. This is not arrogance. This is individuation. Jung described individuation as becoming who you actually are instead of who you were conditioned to be, and it comes with a price. Misunderstanding. Here's the truth you may have been avoiding. If everyone understands you, you are probably not evolving. Growth creates friction, always. The sixth sign is an unusual attraction to solitude. Not isolation, solitude. You begin needing space to think, reflect, and integrate. Jung himself retreated into long periods of solitude during his deepest transformations, because silence is where the unconscious speaks, and most people never hear it because they never stop moving. If solitude feels nourishing rather than empty, pay attention. That's not withdrawal. That's preparation. The seventh and final sign is a quiet inner pull toward meaning. Not happiness, not success. Meaning. You start asking bigger questions. Who am I becoming? What matters beyond survival? What kind of life would feel truthful? Jung believed this moment marks the transition from living externally to living internally, from reacting to choosing. The best stage of your life does not begin when things feel easy. It begins when you stop running from what feels difficult. So what do you do if you recognize yourself in these signs? Here's one simple habit Jung would support. Instead of asking, how do I fix this? Ask, what is this trying to teach me? Write it down. Sit with it. Don't rush answers. Growth doesn't need speed, it needs honesty. If you're in this stage, you're not broken. You're becoming. And most people never make it this far. If this video resonated with you and you want more psychology, philosophy, and depth like this, subscribe to the channel. You're not here by accident.